I'm Brewster Kahle, Digital Librarian of the Internet Archive, a nonprofit research library trying to build universal access to all knowledge.
Okay, hi Brewster. Thanks for coming. yeah. So my first question will be just for people who don't know you to like quick introduction, like what minute, 1 minute, like for you and what do you do?
I'm Brewster Kahle. I'm the Digital Librarian of the Internet Archive. The idea is to build universal access to all knowledge. That was the dream of the internet that I signed on to try to make happen.
Wow, it's beautiful. I really appreciate the things that you do. It's wonderful that we have you storing everything. But how did you like come up with the idea of making that?
I'm back in college, 1980, tried to figure out something good you could do with technology. And one was to try to protect people's privacy. This was in the early days when cryptography was starting to become legal in the United States. But I found that was too hard. So I went to plan B, which was to try to build the Library of Alexandria for the digital age. And I've just been on that path, and it's now been 40 some odd years, and we're not there yet, which is, I find crushing. We so could be there to have all the published works of humankind, all the books, music, video, lectures, everything created for humans available to anybody, anywhere wanting to have access. So I thought it was a technical problem. Turns out it was an institutional issue.
And what is that? Can you expand more?
Yeah, I mean, technologically, we've had the capacity to go and store these materials. I mean, just the library systems in the United States is $12 billion a year. The amount of storage that it takes to go and do all of this is just not that much. And even going and paying authors out of that in the traditional way of supporting it, all of that's fine. It's just these organizations, institutions that wanted to take advantage of the digital to go and create more power for themselves, more control. Whether it's large-scale publishers, really is a big problem. But also organizations didn't adapt. Universities, hospitals. We've ended up also with not trusting very much. So the sharing is impacted. But it's so still on it. There's still more to go.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about obstacles that you had to overcome. You had a really long journey, but I mean, you have to face like with so many things, like I don't know, copyright, Google doing more or less the same things, and so many. Like, what are the top challenges that you had to overcome during this long period of time doing that?
I'd say convincing people that in the early days it was convincing people that this was possible. Because people had been dreaming of the Library of Alexandria for thousands of years. And when there's a new technology change, whether it's going to papyrus or to go to print or now to digital, you can start to think about all of something. Like, how much is all ever written? And it suddenly becomes kind of doable. So the first challenge was just trying to convince people that it's a worthwhile thing to do. But we had to get people to see themselves in the picture. How do you make a game with many winners? Not so that there's just one gigantic corporation that owns and controls it all, but you can go and make it so that individuals want to participate. They want to go and share. So there's a good news story, and that in October of this year, the Internet Archive will have archived its 1 trillionth webpage, 1 trillion web pages, made by maybe 1 billion people. So people want to share. Corporations are, more about not sharing or defining and crushing. Governments are having trouble these days, but people are awesome.
That's nice to hear. We still believe in humanity.
Yes.
We hope people eventually will overcome all the bureaucracy and all the corporation. But how do you feel in general the change of like internet over this like 40 years or more? Like how it was back then and how is it different now? How do you feel?
The biggest change really has been the consolidation and control. The internet was designed to be a decentralized technology, and the World Wide Web wasn't designed very rigorously. So the World Wide Web has a problem. Unlike in the publishing era, where you have a publisher go and make things available, they'd sell things to people and to libraries, and they would keep things going. And the publishers would work on the next thing. The publishers now think that they should own and control all of it.
Mhm.
And then there's only one copy in one place. So if they change it, it's changed everywhere or deleted everywhere all at once. So we tried to put in a fix, a kludge, called the Wayback Machine by archiving the World Wide Web and making a copy. So you could see things in the past where the publisher is, wants everybody to think something different. And so but it's a kludge on top of a publishing system that in the paper era had much more resilience, much more robustness to it. Publishers could go out of business completely, and a publisher couldn't just go and say, "Oh, I want to change that book," and it suddenly is changed in all libraries all at once. You couldn't do that in the paper era. In the electronic era, it can, and it happens all the time. So now that we have governments and the corporations going and trying to control what people think, they're pulling things away. And unless there are libraries and archives, then you can't do this. And so we need lots of them. So we wanted lots of libraries and archives to start archiving the World Wide Web. And it's been challenging. So I just went to the Netherlands National Library, and they don't think they have the rights under the law to even collect Dutch websites.
Oh, wow.
And they don't even think they have the right to collect Dutch websites in such a way that you could go and see those Dutch websites in one room during 1 hour on one terminal that you can't bring a camera in to see. They don't think they can do any of these things. So the laws have been pushed so hard by the publishers to make it so that libraries, even the national libraries, can't do their jobs.
Yeah, we all see this direction that internet is going now. Everything is getting too restricted. But question here, how can we get back the state of internet we had?
Yeah.
Is it even possible?
Absolutely possible. We still have the technologies to make a game with many winners. How do you make it so that there isn't centralized points of control that will make it so that there's a gatekeeper of either what's being said or where all the money goes, and it all ends up with them? It is possible, but it requires coordination. It needs actually often government law help. One of the things that I'm really surprised about in my career, starting in the 1980s, was the government's allowing corporations to grow gigantic. And it's easier to stop the companies from merging than it is to try to get them to break up after the fact, but they just haven't. They just keep allowing them to merge and become bigger and bigger and bigger. So how do we make a decentralized web again? How do we do that? How do we make it so that anybody can go and make the information available under their own terms, even get paid for it, with privacy and robustness? And then how can we get so that readers can find things no matter where they are, even if they're not on some major platform? Do we need algorithms that are centralized and coordinated by large commercial players to make it so that words, videos, thoughts move around effectively? And maybe we did at a time when it required mainframes and these big things, but now we know the techniques, and we can do things like Blue Sky that are not that many people to run it. It's not thousands of people at Twitter that are at Blue Sky. So we can do that as long as people feel that they're not being taken advantage of. They're not being shafted by some company, by some government watching, from corporations surveilling. So we need privacy, we need trust, we need a sense of sharing and building something together. Absolutely possible with the technologies of JavaScript in the browser allows your computer to be a computational node just by clicking on a web page. It's kind of awesome. We have abilities to move beyond the cloud-based services to have more decentralized compute services. I'm excited about making web servers again that can be on your home machine. Like, can you just go and download something and then make it private so that you can't be hunted down for making information available? And the people that are reading your website aren't feeling like they are being tracked. And we have the technologies with Tor. We have alternatives to the DNS system, which is currently being attacked by large corporate players to go and try to knock people offline. We have mechanisms of building around the centralization we mistakenly put into the internet infrastructure the first time around.
And what do you think is the role of Web3 here? And like, in general, your take on Web3 and its possible role in like making the internet great again?
The two things I really want out of Web3 is a mechanism of doing registration of a next generation DNS. Can we go and register names for these large hash addresses of things like Tor onion services? Can we go and make it easy to refer to them? And that's not just a easy, like, drop it on a chain. There's going to be contention between people so that Coca-Cola or Internet Archive is not hijacked. So how do you do that? And that, I think, is going to require some good, strong thinking. Another piece that I think we can do well is make decentralized e-commerce. Can you make it so that people can make money by, say, publishing their songs on the net, by going and having end users be able to go and maybe hear a sample, but then be able to buy something with some currency, probably a cryptocurrency, a stable coin or whatever, and then put a coin in the box and be able to get an unencrypted version of the song? So yes, you could go and take this unencrypted thing and go and put it out there. Yeah, but that's dorky. I think what people want to know is if they're going to buy something, it's the money's actually getting to the band or the singer and right now there's so many middlemen that I think people have kind of given up on you hear these stories of these authors making nothing, right? And certainly a lot of money goes to the publishers and they're collecting rights agencies, but it doesn't get through to the authors, the singers. So can we make direct connections between people in a privacy enhanced way such that you can do free, information sharing, but also for pay? That's what I think we could get from the Web3 community if there was sort of a bright North Star picked out and made it crisp. Say, if we solve this puzzle, then a lot of good things would happen.
Yeah, it sounds good. Like, just simple thing is, I don't know, to have a Web3 version of Spotify, right? Which is here, which is popular, and so many people use it, and like so much money is taken by the middleman without any reason, and then people just suffer. Actually, there are these subscription services like Spotify. I think it would be great to get back to actually buying things. Like, buy things. Like, I give you some money, you give me a file, and you don't give me a license, you give me a receipt, right? And then I have that, and yes, I could be a bad player with it, but let's make it so that I now own that and I can keep it, preserve it, do the traditional things that we used to be able to do when we bought physical things. The big publishers now say there is no such thing as buying anything. Everything is theirs forever, and they can go and surveil
and watch what's going to happen to it forever. I don't think that's a great way to go. Maybe Spotify kind of thing is a good way to discover, but then you say, I like that band. Why don't I buy things from them and then the money goes to them?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe 80%, 90% of the money that I would spend would actually go to the people. Wouldn't that be a nice welcome change?
Yeah. So like in good old times, buying CDs.
Buying CDs, DVDs, MP3s, records, going to a band and seeing them in a performance hall and know that it's not being skimmed by the ticket company. So can we know that we're actually supporting the people we'd want to support?
Mm-hmm.
That will invigorate people to really participate on both sides. But in the digital world, there's opportunities for leeching off of these systems, spying onto these systems that has been taken advantage of. That's the big thing that I think that we've ended up with in the last 40 years, which we could do with let's hit a redo button and fix some of these things.
Yeah, there's so many things that are broken, but like, I wanted to ask you about the generational shift or gap. Like, how do you feel from like when you have started your journey in web? Like, what was the generation of engineers and developers and hackers back then, and how do you see people now? And maybe what can like younger generation learn from the older ones, went from real cypherpunks of the 80s?
Oh, I think that we got a lot of things wrong in every stage of the way. But at least when I got going, in the United States, back in the 70s and early 80s, you didn't sign your code. At MIT, when we were building the Lisp machine operating system, you didn't even sign your code because it was thought of as arrogant.
Oh, wow. So it was all like commons.
It was all commons.
Wow.
And then when the United States followed the European system of copyright, they made everything copyrighted and forever. So everything expressed was copyrighted. So MIT said, well, if everything's copyrighted and owned, then we own that, so we could fork it. And they destroyed an operating system called the Lisp machine operating system, which pissed off Richard Stallman so much that he went and built the free and open source software license, which was an attempt to get back to the more commons-oriented structure that we operated in. So I think there's been mistakes, and then there's been counters, and mistakes and counters, mistakes and counters. And right now we've got a mistake in way too much licensing and not enough buying. What is good is the amount of sharing people are up for doing. So open source software is actually doing quite well, right? In terms of GitHub, there's just a lot of people see it as their career is going and sharing, which is kind of great.
Yeah.
So open access journal literature is doing well. The book industry is not doing well in terms of sharing. They just make it so fewer and fewer people see it. Some of the mistakes that we see is that Wikipedia is a glorious project, but it's thin, right? And you need to go and click through to the references. But the references in Wikipedia, they're biased towards things you can click on and see, which a lot of the publishers say you can't see their thing. It's paywalls, it's restricted, it's whatever. So people are linking from Wikipedia to blog posts, propaganda, things that are paid news. And that's weakening our infrastructure, our mental infrastructure. We're not allowing this next generation to stand on the shoulders of giants, right, of the literature that's come before, because we're denying it to them. So we're getting a generation that's confused of what's true or not, whether the Holocaust happened, whether basic facts is just being flooded with propaganda without the library being available. We can make a change to go back to this idea of let's get access to the materials to this next generation. This next generation is going to be brought up on AI, on these large language models. And we're right now making sure that the large language models don't have very good things in it. You can go and try them, and they're like Well, they get confused too because they're learning from what's on the web, right? The common crawl is the sort of the default way to learn, and it's thin. So if we're going to bring up the next generation, not maybe this time on Google searches, but on AI, let's make sure this technology really works. Let's build European values. Let's build public AI. Let's build AI technologies that reflect European values or your nation's values. It's not that expensive. You don't need to put up new nuclear power plants to power building all language models. So why don't we go and leverage this technology to try to solve new and different possibilities? Like, what can we do with climate? There's a Internet Archive Europe is helping sponsor Climate GPT.
Oh.
So you take the best we know about climate, because it's legal to do this in Europe, to go and put that into a large language model that's a nonprofit for the public AI. So can we go and solve that? Can we make large language models of small languages, Bulgarian, Finnish, so that it actually isn't just translated into an English model and then it comes back out? It's actually, all it knows is Finnish. And it just knows the literature and the thinking and the way of thinking to increase the resilience and the diversity that, for instance, is the European treasure, the European tradition.
Yeah, 100%. I really like that you made this hot take on AI, because it was also one of my questions, like, how is it going? But my next question will be about the cypherpunk. Like, you've seen it emerging, and I don't know if you notice it now, but there is some sort of revival of cypherpunk, at least in Web3 space. So what do you think about cypherpunk in general, and what do you think it really means to be a cypherpunk nowadays, and how is it different from the 80s as well?
At least what I'm seeing is a lot of applied cryptography to try to support very human-oriented tasks, where maybe there was this much more sci-fi idea of cypherpunk back in the 80s, which might be a lot more detached from real social problems. I think that we're seeing people trying to use these things to protect people's identities, trying to make it so that voting works better. Can we use our phones to do voting and have any idea that it's going to actually work? So we're seeing basic societal infrastructure having trouble, especially in the United States right now. And so turning to those that understand these technologies to build very human-oriented systems so that we understand them, they can be adopted and adapted by lots of people. That's some of the things I'm seeing out of the decentralized web community, some of the Web3 groups. And it's not just all about, I don't know, making monies and NFTs and the like. NFTs, the idea of registering digital ownership, I think is a great idea. It's terrific. Do we need more pictures of gorillas? I don't think so. So I'm hoping that these technologies are sort of adapted from being outlawed when cryptography was outlawed in the 70s and 80s, to being really applicable towards helping people live a life that they kind of want. They just want to be able to talk to their friends and not have to be watched. They want to be able to buy things in stores without it all being creepy. They want to be able to move around without always being watched. How can we build these systems? And that's what I'm seeing out of some of this generation of the cryptography experts.
Yeah, that's a great take. I wanted to ask you maybe some recommendation for builders, especially for builders who are trying to do a non-profit organizations in web. Web3, Web2, doesn't matter, because it's a tough road, right?
It is.
And like maybe you can share the challenges you had to overcome, or maybe lessons learned from your journey of building like non-profits.
I'm a big believer in the nonprofit. The 501c3 structure in the United States has been a really good idea out of the United States. There have been a lot of bad ideas out of the United States, but that one I think is a good one. It means that you don't have equity ownership, so you don't have people feeling that they own and control other people's lives, right? It's owned by the public, like the GNU public license of software. It's the public's. So the Internet Archive, how do you get people going and funded in a particular direction? There are now more foundations and individuals that are funding these. You won't get rich, but hopefully you'll just get enough to keep going. So I like the nonprofit structures that they tend to orient themselves towards making everything as available as they can. So the Internet Archive or Wikipedia, by being openly accessible, it shows that we're vulnerable and people step up to support. So the Internet Archive gets about 200,000 people every year going and hitting the little I'll donate button. It's kind of great. Yeah. And that's about 1/3. Then there's about 1/3 is major donors, and about 1/3 is earned income. So libraries pay the Internet Archive to collect web pages or digitize books. We work with 1,300 libraries, and that helps build these collections. And the libraries are perfectly welcome to, and we try to ask them to take their data back and store them in other places too. Mm-hmm. So it's not building sort of a moat. It's just trying to build an ecosystem. And if you have an idea that other people want to have happen, often they'll help you do it. Mm-hmm. The idea of being secret and having, the whole venture capital sort of, secret, and then spring it on the world, and then you own things, and you try to make it so that people can't get out of your system. Those are antithetical to the nonprofit structures. I'd like to see more of those in more parts of the world. A lot of the nonprofit law is not as well developed in other places. Mm-hmm. Internet Archive Switzerland is taking 18 months to start. That's too long. So I think there is a good idea here that is based on public ownership that we could support. If we could get more public entities like real governments going and funding some of the technologies that they use for the public good. Ben Cervini has this idea of the foundation of public code, which is another level up from open source software. How do you build the governance structures and the funding structures among public entities to go and build the apps that they all need? Every city needs the same apps. Do you go to Deloitte to do this, or some local developer, or do you work together to build not just the modules, but a supported good service? What does it take? And we now know, like Signal is a really good service, but Brian Acton put in $50 million. That was a lot of dollars to go and get it so that it was a quality level. So I think we have to understand that these things aren't always cheaper to produce. They are as expensive, but they can benefit many, many more people. So I think the nonprofit infrastructures, nonprofit foundations, individuals participating, governments participating, we can build a bedrock of open access literature, of code, a society worth living in.
Talking about the society worth living in. Imagine we are, 10, 15 years from now, and we have this bright future we all imagine, private, secure, distributed, whatever. How would it look like? What's this perfect web of the future, and how our life will change if it's here?
I think we'll have a wider feeling like you can win. That you're graduating high school, that you can get a job, not just making physical things, but on digital things, and you can make money. You can get feedback positively from your community. they can give you guidance as to sort of like, no, go tell us more about how to repair chairs. You're an expert in repairing chairs. Like, write the next generation book or manual or video or, I don't know, VR thing, whatever it is, that you can have a game with many winners so that you can have it so it's welcoming to come into this world. Right now, I think a lot of people are feeling like they're dealt a really bad future, right? Whether it's climate or the surveillance of the corporations or the wars, it just feels awful out there. Like, what a terrible way to run a society. So I want a game with many winners. I want these to be an empowering, decentralized systems that you don't feel like you have to bow down to some corporate god or these governments making unreasonable demands, or having people be disappeared by masked men. That's just not a way we want to live.
Yeah, but the question is, like, imagine we have this beautiful, wonderful society, like we want, right? And we have this web of the future with private, decentralized, secure, and it's like a perfect web. And the question is, like, how do you think this future will look like? Like, what's going to change when the internet will be private, secure, and decentralized?
I'm hoping that people will feel that they're not being taken advantage of, that they're not being run over, that there's not some sort of spooky things happening around the corner, that what you see is what you get, that you can be upfront with people person to person, but you could be upfront with people digitally, and you're not going to be being lied to by an AI. You're not going to be just being surveilled to go and train on you. There was an interview that at the Internet Archive, somebody was applying, or something was applying for a tech job, and as best I can tell, that thing was an AI, and it completely freaked me out. I just like, this is really not right. It's just seriously bad behavior. There are people behind that think that the way to succeed is to cheat. That is not a great way to go. So let's make it so that cheating, right, isn't encouraged by our governments and our corporations. And I think we have widespread cheating going on, lying, cheating, stealing by the governments, by the corporations. I guess I still have real faith in people and in gatherings of people that know and want to work together and trust each other. We're not all cynical. So let's find that and grow our communities. And those communities might be over long distances. So can you go and move from place to place? I've been spending a couple months in Amsterdam. What a fabulous city. And I can still do that because I interact with people that work for the Internet Archive, US and Canada, Europe, all online, all the time. Can we build that internet infrastructure so that, okay, I want to be in Amsterdam for the next month or two. Let's do that. Can we make that really easy, smooth, private, secure? We can encourage people to learn more, be healthier with this technology if we do it right. If not, it's going to feel like 1984, just like, and where there's a boot on your neck all the time, forever, right? That was the line out of 1984. Yeah. So let's build a better future.
Yeah. Okay, so Brewster, thanks for coming. It was a pleasure. Thank you for your time and for our talk. Thanks for watching, guys. Ciao.